The Trump regime criminals are doing that thing again where they expect us to give a shit about them clutching their pearls over divisive rhetoric while pretending to be innocent little angels themselves. But nobody's buying their bullshit anymore, and we're all just collectively rolling our eyes in response. So the official White House Twitter account posted a quote from Donald Trump, which reads, "I do think that the hate speech of Democrats is very dangerous. I really think it's dangerous for the country." And people responded by pointing out the outrageous hypocrisy, sharing articles highlighting how Donald Trump himself boosted videos of his own supporters, saying that the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat, and shared posts from him saying that all of civilization will die, and how happy he is that Robert Mueller, his political opponent, is dead. But if you dare make a factual statement about how the president was found liable for rape in civil court, or talk about how he's implicated in the Epstein files and accused of molesting a 13-year-old child, or point out how he literally incited an insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government, well, you're engaging in hate speech. Now, the collective response, obviously, to that indignant horseshit has been to tell this administration to suck our nuts from the back, because nobody cares about what you have to say. We're living in an environment cultivated by Donald Trump and the fascist Republican Party, but now the fuck your feelings people are mad that their feelings are getting hurt now that they're getting a taste of their own medicine, and just nobody cares anymore. We've been dealing with this baboon-brained, narcissistic, nepo baby, fascist, pedophile, war criminal rapist for more than a fucking decade now, and we're all just so tired at this point. A wet fart carries more weight and substance than anything that he or his cronies have to say, because they lie like they breathe. They wear their shameless hypocrisy like a badge of honor, and at a certain point, when you behave that way for so long, society just stops taking everything that you say seriously, and we've now officially reached that point, which is why nobody feels sorry for the Trumps over mild jokes made by Jimmy Kimmel. And Zateo put together a compilation of just some of the fucked up things that Trump has said over the years that demonstrates why we're so unmoved by his cry-bully bullshit.
They are indeed the enemy from within, but this is who we're fighting. We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
The Democrats are sick. There's something wrong. They're like terrorists.
The ultra-left-wing liars, losers, creeps, perverts, and freaks who are devouring the future of this state like a swarm of locusts. Kamala is mentally impaired. Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. Ilhan Omar, who her brother became her husband. We keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. We'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know? Crazy, horrible human being, Nancy Pelosi, who cheats like hell. She's a crooked person. She's a bad person. Evil. She's an evil, sick, crazy. Oh, no. It starts with a B, but I won't say it. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. Somalia is just terrible. A lot of people say it's the worst country anywhere in the world. I can generalize. They're low IQ people. I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? To get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news, and I don't mind that so much.
And that's not an exhaustive list, by the way. He also joked about Hillary Clinton getting assassinated. He mocked a disabled reporter, not to mention there was the grab him by the pussy comment, which basically was him admitting that he's a rapist. There's the when the looting starts, the shooting starts tweet, which is him saying that he's going to kill the people he was elected to protect. Like, there is a never-ending list of fucked up things that he said, but we're supposed to feel sorry for his dipshit, duck-faced, gold-digging wife because a late-night comedian dared to make a joke about her during an episode of his show where he did a mock speech during a parody of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Like, this was the only thing that he said that pissed him off so thoroughly.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
That's it. But you can't say that apparently. You're not supposed to joke about how she obviously married him for his money and will be happy when he soon dies of old age because, you know, as she put it in a tweet, that's hateful and violent rhetoric. And look, I'm no fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I have nothing against him. I just don't watch late night television, so I'm not familiar with his work. But you could argue that he actually was being too nice to Melania Trump with that joke because if she didn't marry Donald Trump for his money and wasn't waiting for him to die, we're supposed to believe what? That she married him for his personality or because she finds him handsome or attractive? Like, she thinks it's less insulting for us to think that she wants to have sex with that perpetually wet, anthropomorphic pig? Give me a fucking break. If anything, Jimmy Kimmel could have gone a lot harder on her. But it doesn't matter because they have power and we don't. And they're going to wield that power in a tyrannical way at our expense and wield that power in a way that would be unjustifiable for any Democratic administration to. Meaning that they're trying to pressure Disney into firing Jimmy Kimmel by intimidating them. Semaphore reports that Trump's FCC crony Brendan Carr is challenging ABC's broadcast license, which isn't surprising since Disney was already under review for its DEI policies. Quote, if the evidence does in fact play out and shows that they were engaged in race and gender-based discrimination, that's a very serious issue at the FCC that could fundamentally go to their character qualification to even hold a license, Carr told Fox in April. So I guess he thinks that we're stupid enough to believe that this is about DEI when the FCC has been using that as an excuse for months to keep their boots on the necks of networks to pressure them into not offending King Donald Trump and his bird-brained wife. Can you imagine what would happen if a Democrat threatened the license of, say, Fox News? You know what? You don't have to imagine it because it actually happened. Because when Biden nominated Gigi Sohn, a consumer advocate, to be a commissioner on the FCC, Republicans threw a fucking conniption fit. They stalled her nomination for 16 months before she ultimately withdrew because she was critical of Fox News in the past, especially in the aftermath of their 2020 election lies, and Republican senators like Marsha Blackburn refused to confirm her nomination because she was worried that Sohn would use the federal government to go after conservative media outlets. Yeah. And after she finally withdrew her nomination after months of lobbying from the industry, incest porn aficionado Ted Cruz celebrated it as a victory, saying, the FCC is not a place for partisan activists. Free speech is too important. But now that the FCC has explicitly become a place for partisan activists, we're just supposed to be okay with that and shut the fuck up about it because according to them, they have a good reason to censor speech. And look, this is the same thing with every other institution. You know, if liberal justices on the Supreme Court behaved the same way that conservative justices behaved, they would not tolerate that. So everybody sees the game that they're playing, and that's why nobody cares. And Jimmy Kimmel responded to their censorship threats by pointing out their hypocrisy.
Obviously was a joke about their age difference and the look of joy we see on her face every time they're together. It was a very light roast joke about the fact that he's almost 80 and she's younger than I am. It was not, by any stretch of the definition, a call to assassination, and they know that. I've been very vocal for many years speaking out against gun violence. And also, I agree that hateful and violent rhetoric is something we should reject. I do, and I think a great place to start to dial that back would be to have a conversation with your husband about it.
And he's right about it being a bad faith interpretation of his joke, but the problem is that pointing out their hypocrisy does nothing to move the needle. One, because you can't shame the shameless, and two, because even though they know that we perceive them as blatant hypocrites, they simply don't care because they genuinely believe that they are superior to us. They think that it's only legitimate for them to rule the country with an iron fist because they're the good guys and we're the bad guys. So what they do is justified and anything that we do is not justified because we are inherently evil. That's how they actually view the world. They think they have a God-given right to crush us by all means necessary. And that's why what we perceive as hypocrisy is actually them being not just hypocrites, but power-hungry tyrants as well. And it goes so much deeper than Jimmy Kimmel, because last week they decided to weaponize the Justice Department to target the Southern Poverty Law Center, not because they're mad about them paying informants and extremist groups like they say, but because the Southern Poverty Law Center correctly designates right-wing organizations as extremist and hate groups. In the same week, Trump's FCC started seeking comment on a proposed change to the parental guidelines TV rating system that effectively penalized shows that feature trans and non-binary characters characters. The week before that, the FCC threatened broadcasters' licenses over their coverage of the Iran war, because if you report the objective truth about how poorly the war is going for America, that means that you're unpatriotic and actually want Americans to lose the war. Never mind the fact that expressing unpatriotic views is protected under the First Amendment, or at least it was. But just imagine if the DOJ under a Democratic administration went after the Heritage Foundation in this way. Or if they threaten networks featuring Christian characters who glorify a violent God that committed a genocide by flooding the world. Imagine if Jessica Rosenworcel, the FCC chair under Biden, threatened Newsmax for their coverage of Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan because they thought that it was unpatriotic. They would never shut the fuck up about that. But when they talk about free speech, that doesn't mean free speech under the First Amendment. That means free speech exclusively for them. They have the right to free speech. You have the right to shut the fuck up and listen to their free speech. This goes so much deeper than hypocrisy, and I think people are really starting to realize this. They are straight up fucking with us at this point. You're not just this blatantly hypocritical if you don't have ulterior motives, and they do. In 2022, Stephen Miller, of all people, tweeted this: "If the idea of free speech enrages you, the cornerstone of democratic self-government, then I regret to inform you that you are a fascist." And he tweeted this knowing full well that he himself is a fascist who does not support free speech. And I could go through example after example after example, pointing out their blatant hypocrisy. I still think that that's useful to an extent at winning over normies, but we need to recalibrate and acknowledge that their behavior isn't driven by their lack of self-awareness and petty hypocrisy. It is driven by their sheer thirst for absolute power. And no administration in modern history has been this big of a threat to the First Amendment, because they're willing to break our entire system of governance just to get the outcomes that they want. So, of course, free speech is going to be one of the first things to go. It's not just a matter of them using the government to silence their critics. It's a matter of them setting a new standard across the entire country that other fascists are happily following. I mean, Larry Buschardt spent 37 days in jail after Lexington police arrested him for a joke that he made on Facebook about Charlie Kirk. A Florida college student was arrested for making a joke in a WhatsApp group chat about wanting Netanyahu to drop bombs on her college so she wouldn't have to take her final exam. Didn't matter that it was an obvious joke. She still got arrested for that. 23 states have passed de facto porn bans in the form of age verification laws, and state legislatures have even passed bans on pride and drag shows and basic forms of expression protected under the First Amendment. And GOP-controlled states have been moving in a more authoritarian direction for a while. And I think that if there was no federal government to restrain them, and all of these red states were just their own countries, they would be some of the most totalitarian regimes throughout human history. But now that, they have the federal government aligned with their tyrannical priorities, they're letting their fucking freak flags fly. And it's not like this is necessarily a new phenomenon, because other state governments have also enacted draconian anti-BDS laws requiring U.S. citizens to sign fucking loyalty pledges to Israel. But now we have an administration that is explicitly hostile to free speech, and you can see the effect that that's having on American discourse. I mean, Trump has been so hostile that any conservative who ever purports to care about free speech again should be laughed out of the fucking room. Trump has sued multiple networks. He's sued polling outlets. They've jailed pro-Palestinian protesters like Mahmoud Khalil, as well as Rumeysa Ozturk. Leka Cordia spent an entire year in ICE detention after she was arrested for participating in Colombia's anti-genocide protests, because in America, the real crime isn't materially supporting Israel's genocide of Palestinians, it's condemning the genocide of Palestinians. And we'd be here all day if I went through all of the ways that the First Amendment is being undermined in this country. And to be clear, the cracks have been forming in the First Amendment for a very long time, but the Trump regime is exploiting all of those cracks in order to break it entirely. They may actually be offended by jokes and criticism. I believe that they are indeed butthurt, but understand that this is fundamentally about power at the end of the day, and that is abundantly clear to everyone with eyes. Hence why so few people seem to care about the right-wing pearl-clutching and tone policing, because we all see what this is about. So we need to defy them and continue to exercise our First Amendment rights, because if we bow to these tyrants and obey in advance in any way, shape, or form, then they've won and we've lost. And Democrats need to be equally ruthless if they ever do take back power, because they need to be the threats that Republicans said that they were. they need to weaponize the government to target Fox News and the Heritage Foundation and regulate them out of existence. And listen, 5 to 10 years ago, you would never hear me saying this because I've always maintained a very consistent and principled position on the First Amendment and democracy more broadly speaking. But unfortunately, times have changed and that ship has sailed. Democracy is dead and we're now in a fight for survival. And Democrats, to their credit, are starting to fight fire with fire in some ways when it comes to redistricting, and they're holding out longer than I expected on DHS funding, which is great. But if they ever fully take back power one day, it is incumbent on them to wield power in the same exact way that Republicans wield power and explicitly target conservative institutions and entities that are responsible for killing our democracy. And it's not like it would be overtly political because these people actually are fucking criminals. And only after there's been real accountability can we talk about getting back to our former status as a flawed democracy. And if we don't disempower that threat, we can never, ever go back to the way that things were because we're dealing with authoritarians here. And we can't let them steamroll us by constricting ourselves exclusively to rules that they refuse to abide by. And the good news is that I think enough Americans finally understand that that is the uncomfortable truth that we have to grapple with.
Alpha male, not a beta male.